So there's like a lot of this play going on between me and them. Not anything that was visual though. So just like objects disappearing and then reappearing like right in front of me where they definitely weren't before. So much so that I got into the habit of asking for my things back when they were missing.
Yes, and many children see them too. About 75% of the world's children today are being born with etheric vision. And when your children talk with people and have daydream playmates, the chances are they are actually speaking to some of these people. Because these angels or angelic forces or nature spirits, as they're often called, will often make themselves seen.
And all of a sudden I hear him go, whoa, or, something like that. So I look up. And as I look up, I see this thing.
And I said, I've never seen a butterfly like you before.
I know that the paranormal is real. Listen.
As soon as I spoke to it, it turns around and makes eye contact with me. And then it stands upright.
And it was at that moment that I saw it was like an orange light appear above this row of trees. From this sort of orange light, this thing appeared. Its wings were actually like sycamore leaf shaped.
And I started talking to them. I'm like, hi, are y'all the dwarves? And I would hear whispers that would say, hi, yeah, you want to play? And it wasn't just my imagination. And I had told them, I'm like, my dwarves, they like beer, And my dad's like, yeah, sure, your dwarves like beer. And they were holding a conversation, and his beer slid upwards instead of downwards, how the house was tilted. And him and my brothers jumped up.
So I stopped calling out Adam, and I'm just kind of, my mind draws a blank, and I stop behind that tree stump. I'm pretty close to it now because I took a few steps forward, and I see this thing.
Welcome everybody tonight to Fascinating Fae. Tonight, we're traveling to Puerto Rico to talk with Cora. Cora, how are things going in Puerto Rico tonight?
I have no complaints over here. I'm just like at the tip of the Bermuda Triangle and having a lovely day with my very vocal cat.
Yeah. Interesting right off the top here. We've been talking for 30 minutes and it's been crystal clear. And as soon as you said the word Bermuda Triangle, it just sounded like gravel in a can.
Oh, great.
Well, hopefully you don't get whisked away to places unseen before we're done talking, because I'm excited to talk with you here tonight. Cora, at the start of every episode, I spend 1 minute doing the basic same intro. Can I do that for you here so that you kind of know about the show?
Yeah, carry on.
Okay, thank you. I also do it because you never know who's dropping in for the first time, and I like to make everybody feel at home. Here on the show, the way that I approach things is I do not put emphasis on convincing me or the audience of these events. It's very, very difficult to, first of all, interpret and discuss and retell most fairy encounter stuff. And if you pair that with the added burden of trying to convince everybody that this happened, it quickly becomes, overwhelmingly difficult task. So I just like to clear the air of that part. It's a given that if I've, brought you forward onto the show, I feel that there's a good reason. I'm here to listen. I just kind of want to hear what happened without, any additional pressure. I like to say that. I also like to say that it is brave to come on the show. You and I just talked briefly about some of the consequences that having events or capabilities that fall into this subject matter header, fairies, paranormal. Having that stuff go on or being interested or part of that stuff can be difficult to, first of all, talk about in the case of real experiences, and also difficult to integrate into yourself when it comes to carrying on. So I have a great deal of respect for the bravery that my guests are showcasing when they come on the show, and I just want to make sure you know, Cora, I do think it is brave to come and talk with me here today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I have a deep respect for the sentiment that you're giving to. I think that it can be really comforting to hear other people's experiences, almost like it normalizes things that you've experienced. And I agree, it can be a little tricky sort of navigating how to integrate things that you've experienced into other aspects of life. And there is always, I guess, sort of a risk in sharing things like this because it can impact other areas of life, or I think people worry that you may not be taken seriously anymore if you share stories like these publicly.
This is absolutely accurate, and I mean, I think it is valuable for both you and I to do that acknowledgement as we start here. And then the final thing I say as we get going is I just like to remind you and the audience that my particular interview style is one in which I try my best to remain silent and allow you, the guest, to have the full stage, the full time to, weave all your connections and get into all your details. However, I'm not going to leave you hanging, so I will obviously, jump in where I sense that you're naturally done or you want my feedback or input. And we'll just kind of take it from there. I'll ask questions once you've told me stuff because I'm usually fascinated and curious, and that is pretty much the format of the show. So with all of that behind us, which is, I feel really strong about that little intro there. Thank you for that. Here's what we'll do next. So Cora, I've had a chance to get a little bit of some teasers about what you're going to come and talk to me about tonight, but I try to keep myself fresh so I hear it here first. So if you'd be so kind for myself and for the audience, please walk us all into what you've come to share here tonight.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here and to have met you and be conversing with you. And I feel like I was just sort of intuitively guided to you and your show. I was having a moment, I guess a couple days ago, maybe last week, where I was realizing that I guess like it feels like my life has become very serious lately, or like almost just too mechanical. Like I feel like I'm focusing too much on kind of boring adult like things, and I was realizing that I'm shifting over into that realm and it feels a little unbalanced, and I feel like I keep getting like pulled by the Fae to sort of return. And so I had just started out by looking on the internet for, I guess, some like reality based experiences with the Fae. I was just wanting to know if there was any either like research or books or any sort of media out there that I might be able to see or interact with. And I had found out about the fairy census. Are you familiar with that?
For sure. Yes, that's Simon Young has resurrected the fairy census from the Fairy Investigation Society.
Yeah, I had found that and I had reached out to that organization just thinking that I might like to connect with them. I find that a very interesting, just trying to collect real modern day stories about encounters with the Fae. And so I find that really fascinating. And your show also came up when I was doing that research. And it made me very excited that you were taking the time to talk with people and sort of like find the, I guess, the similarities. It it's very fun to hear other people's experiences, But it's also fun to learn about, like, if you've had a personal experience, what about it is typical and what isn't. And I think it's just, it's nice to hear about other people who have had similar experiences. So that's kind of how I got here. And specifically, I was listening to an episode where you were speaking with somebody about dolls that they were making, um, in like a channeled fashion. And that really, really resonated with me because I am like a natural channel. I do it on accident a lot of the time. And I didn't ever really connect in my mind that the work that I've done in the past with the dolls was perhaps more Fae-centric than I had realized. um, and so I think that was the first thing that sort of intuitively drew me to you and your show, was just that connection, like thinking more about the Fae and dolls. And I find it fascinating that they seem linked in that way, that they like seem to, I don't know, enjoy inhabiting a humanoid form, or I'm not sure what point I'm trying to make here, but I do feel like there's this overlap. Like when you think about different kinds of paranormal entities, the Fae just feel really human to me in some ways, but also supernatural. And I find that the way that they interact with mortals feels very like playful and like almost like familial in a way.
I Is it okay if I jump in?
Yes.
So, I mean, the mystery and power of that episode with Danielle continues to just create ripples in space and time, I guess. The very last woman I spoke to also reached out to me because of that episode, and because she also has this sense that she's been channeling Fae into dolls. Now, I mean, with all respect to all y'all, right? If you had told me 5 years ago that I was going to be spending my time, talking with like women that believe they channel fairies into dolls, I would have said, yeah, right,
Yeah, it's kind of an insane thing to talk about. It's a weird thing to be doing, and yet it's a strong impulse. And I have so many different kinds of experiences with the Fae, but the dolls was really what led me to you and thinking I should reach out and talk to you because I was making these connections. I almost feel like I am the reverse of Danielle, in that I feel like I was experiencing these other interactions with the Fae in terms of them being around me being able to feel them, them toying with items in my home, taking things and then giving them back. So there's like a lot of this play going on between me and them. Not anything that was visual though. So just like objects disappearing and then reappearing like right in front of me where they definitely weren't before. So much so that I got into the habit of asking for my things back when they were missing. So at the time that was happening, I feel like this is all like, I don't know if I'm telling this in a way that's going to make sense, but at the time that was happening, I had actually just enrolled in a mystery school so that I could explore spiritual concepts, just from a curious space to understand if I had my own spiritual beliefs, if I like went into it with a very open mind, just wanting to explore myself and wanting to learn about other realms, astral planes, spiritual gifts, working with beings and guides, goddesses, allies. The school that I went to had a very pagan structure. And when I signed up for that school, I didn't really know what exactly I was getting myself into. I just knew that it was going to be a bit of a self-discovery journey, and it definitely was that, and a lot more. I'm so thankful for the time that I had there with those people and the assignments that they gave us. They were so wonderful. But in that school, we would have different themes that we would be working with and different beings, and we would plan rituals. We would do like trance, kind of like shamanic journeying, trance work. And so sometimes we would connect with different beings, or, kind of go on journeys to different astral planes. And some of the journeys that we would go on had to do with the Fae. Like we would go to the Fae realm and meet a being to work with, or a guide of ours. And so that, for me, was the first time that I was aware that I was connecting with, a Fae being. And I really struggled when I first started going to that school, probably the first year. I struggled to decide if everything I was experiencing was just like in my head and was just like my imagination giving me psychological fodder to work with. But I didn't really care, because I felt like it was very valuable either way. Like, even if it was just my imagination giving me pieces of information in a very visual way, I was okay with it. But what I had happened during that period of life was that it seemed like things started happening out in the real world to me that felt very synchronistic and like connected to the work that I was doing at the mystery school with myself. And so that was the time when I started having things in my home kind of playfully appearing and disappearing. And I definitely attributed that to the Fae. And so a lot of times it wouldn't really be anything super important, but it would just be something that I needed in the moment. I would turn around and go to grab something from the place that it was usually kept, and it wouldn't be there. And I'd go looking all around the house for it, and then it would just pop right back up, like right in front of me, in almost like a taunting way, like in a place that it just couldn't have been before. Like, like on an empty table with nothing on the surface, like not something you could not see.
Give me some specific examples of these instances. I'm obsessed with these object communication tactics.
Okay, so a lot of times I would find that it would, this sounds so mundane too, but just objects that had to do with electronics. Okay, so that was the first thing that I noticed happening. So like we're talking about like remote controls, or headphones, or like a piece of my computer that I needed, like the mouse. I would just be going to use something and it wouldn't be in the place that I put it. And I was accustomed to leaving things in very specific places. So I'm one of those people that's like, everything in your house should have a home where it lives. And so I would go to like pick up the remote control for the TV, and it wouldn't be there. And then I would go searching all over through my house for it. And then I would turn around and it would just be sitting right on the tabletop that I had been standing in front of before, and it wasn't there before. And so this kind of thing would happen so often during this period of my life that I eventually just started, before I would go do the hour-long search in the house, I eventually just started saying, hey, I need you to put the remote back now, please. And that seemed to work. Like, I felt like I got a good response from that. I would turn around, turn back around, and it would just be where it was supposed to be. Which, definitely made me question my own sanity at the time, because it happened so very often.
I really like your storytelling style, and I can hear an interesting mix of previously existing kind of intuition and interest, and then kind of like the disbelief of the increasing manifestation of these actions and because what do you call something that like disappears and reappears? It's a reality breaking event. So I kind of call them events, even though they are small, they are somehow an event. And so, okay, not to press you, because like I mentioned before, there's no gotcha moments in the show, but I'm really in love with these like specific details around specific stories. So you've mentioned the remote control. Is there any other time or couple of times where an object did that you can remember, specifically, and take a moment to kind of walk us through it in more detail? Like, tell me everywhere you looked, tell me kind of where you found something exactly. If you can remember one of those times, it would be really cool to kind of, dig into that a bit more.
This was many years ago, and I think that my memory really is sort of lumping it all together, as this was just my life for about a year. It just happened so often. I know that it happened with headphones, like one, which is so infuriating because you you put them back. Like, I was never a person who just left my things anywhere. So it was really frustrating to like open my headphone case and find one of the little earbuds missing, and then look all over for it and have it resurface again on a flat, clear space. It wasn't like it was in the nook of a purse or under a bed. Like, it didn't make any sense how it could be right on top of the coffee table or the dining table when it should have been in its case where I put it.
Yeah, right in the center often.
Yeah, and it always felt like it was somewhere, like it felt like I was being, like it felt like it was a joke. Like it felt like it was a playful, it was always somewhere that was empty like that, like a clear tabletop. So that had happened with my coffee table, my desk, my dining table, just things that I would be looking, everywhere, like looking in my car, in my purse, near my bed, on my nightstand, just anywhere that it could have like fallen out. And no, just like right on an empty surface after looking for a long time.
I mean, that's the hallmark of Fae object games. It's totally what they do. And it's interesting, like my intuition was pushing there to ask you for like a specific detail, and the fact that you come up with an earbud is fucking remarkable, because that, I just spoke to Harper and her husband Zach, who had an earbud be the thing. And when I was talking to them about it, my earbud mysteriously died. By the way, for the audience listening, there's your cat.
Yes.
Yeah, she knows. Is it a she or he? I should ask.
Yeah, Velveeta is a girl.
Is a girl. Yeah, she knows. And that was a weird, intuitive, goosebumpy moment there. Yeah, Velveeta knows. That's so cool. Wow.
She's like right in my face.
I mean, I can. This cat is on a whole other level. I mentioned that earlier. You have a fairy cat. I'm telling you right now, this cat is giving me vibes.
Yeah, she wants to be a part of the show. I guess she's got some experiences too. Along the lines of like the object thing, there is another really, really significant missing and then returned objects experience that I've had. I had I had to travel. At the time, I was living on another island, on the island of St. Croix. And I was traveling back to Oregon to see some family. And I had packed a bunch of jewelry because I wear a lot of jewelry. And I didn't really know like what I wanted to wear. So I ended up packing, just a makeup bag full of different earrings and a couple different rings and necklaces in there so that I could just kind of pick when I got there and didn't have to think too much about it. And so I took this little makeup bag of my jewelry, and instead of putting it in my suitcase when I was traveling, I decided to keep it in my backpack with me on the plane. And it was just, some of the jewelry that was in there was like family heirlooms that had been passed down from my grandma and my husband's grandma. And I just had a lot of unique pieces in there, like my favorite pieces of jewelry. And brought it with me and I used it as usual on my trip. And then when I came home, I packed it back with me in the same manner. Like I just kept it in my personal backpack because I didn't want to lose it. It was important to me that those stayed like on my person with me. And when I got home, I couldn't find the makeup bag, and I was really upset. Like I could not find it at all. It was just gone. There was nowhere that it could have been. I unpacked my suitcase. I went through my bag a million times. It just wasn't there. And I was really, really upset about it. Like I was just like going back through my mind trying to figure out at what point did I ever even leave my backpack alone? Like how could that have happened? And the only time I could really think was that I had like gone to the bathroom once during my flight home, and that would have been like the only window where that maybe could have been taken. But I, kind of resolved to never seeing those really special pieces of jewelry again because the whole bag was gone, And so I never saw the bag again. Like it's never resurfaced. But a few days later, I was in the bathroom and one of the rings showed up like on the countertop. Like a ring that I was positive was in that bag. And I was so thankful that somehow, it had come back. I didn't know what to think about how it got there. But this kept happening to me. Like every few weeks, another piece of jewelry that had been in that bag would show up on an empty surface. And
wow.
I am telling you, like after 3, 4, 5 times of it happening, I started doing the same thing where I was like, okay, you have, the Fae, you have all my jewelry. I need it back. Please give it back to me. And this probably unfolded over the course of like a year and a half, but every single item in that bag returned to me on a clear countertop at a random time every few weeks.
I mean, Cora, I have full body goosebumps, tip to toe. What you're describing is incredible. That's awesome. You know what? I know you haven't listened to a ton of the show, but as you dig in here, you're going to hear so many variations on the object communication games that they play. Can I tell you what? I'll just offer for what it's worth, and keep in mind, please, I'm not a fairy expert. I'm just, like I told you, like I'm just, why I'm doing this, right? I saw that thing, and I'm trying to, figure out what that was. It's taken me down roads I never expected, especially this object one. But my kind of perspective on it is that first of all, I love your interpretation that it's playful or humorous or jokey. Like it's like a bit of jokes on you, like a prank,
Yes.
I mean, that fits their identity very well, which is that they're tricksters. And I often look at these object disappearances and reappearances probably more intensely than I should, but I'm a kooky dude who hosts this show, so I'm allowed. And I really think about it. I try to ask what is really going on. Here's what I think. I think you mentioned when we were talking earlier, you've never seen one or something to that effect. You said,
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the objects doing that is almost more significant than seeing one. But I do think that why they do it is to communicate with you that they are there.
Yes.
And so it is always an impossible disappearance. That gets your brain working. Where is that fucking thing? Where did it go? Where?
And then you're on a hunt, right?
Yes.
They've sent you on a journey.
Bingo. And now they are, whether you know it or not, they're modulating your mind. They're massaging your consciousness slowly, little by little, by the paradox. Where did that thing go? And then, as it comes back, the paradox becomes even more intense. How did that come back? And now you're left with an unresolvable paradox. Where did it go? How did it come back? And you keep thinking about it. And that's exactly what they want. Because eventually you're going to cave and you're going to do exactly like what you did, which is you're going to ask out loud, can I have my shit back? And I think that they get absolute delight out of breaking our minds by breaking reality. And they love it when they're acknowledged. And they love it when there's that completion of the circuit. Your fried out brain now reconnects, and it's a new brain, one that knows fairies are real and you can't deny it. And I think it's brilliant to consider that without saying a single word or ever showing themselves, they can do all of that with just your ring or a pencil or a remote control. I mean, they're geniuses. They're so fucking intelligent.
No, that's so cool. I love your perspective on this. And I think too, it's very interesting to be in relation with something that you know is there very often and is giving you physical evidence in a way, but not of them. Like they're, yeah, you're having this experience and it does feel like it's a give and take. Like they do something, so you respond, and you're spending time with them in that way, even if you aren't doing that in a traditional relationship way.
I'd go even further. Like, they don't want to play with friends that don't use intuition. So they're making sure that your intuition is functioning, because you can't understand it any other way, right? You just can't logically understand it. You're not going to go find a scientist who's going to say, "Oh yes, well, naturally you have fairies." It's not going to go down like that. You have to do all this heavy lifting in isolation. Like the ring thing is so interesting that every couple of weeks you're getting back another piece of the jewelry. That is a unique variation on this concept that I'm putting forward of object communication. You're coming forward here today with something new. That's really, really cool. That's like, okay, let me ask you a question. Not that you know, but where do you think the stuff is when it's not there? Where does it go?
Oh, that is something I really would like an answer to. I mean, the way that I understand the world, I do feel like there are different planes of existence, that, like we were talking about with my cat, like I do feel like she's seeing a different layer. Like I don't really know how to describe it, but it feels like they're all like right next to each other, and some people have access to more of them than others. And it feels like there's many, many layers. I don't know if you call that like astral layers or planes of existence, but it does feel like we can move in and out of those spaces. And I feel like some people can go into many of them. Some people just stay here. Some people see a little pop of another one and then they don't. It's hard for me to explain why that is. I don't really understand it. But I've had some really strange experiences with objects and feeling like I've switched into a different plane. So I don't know exactly how much of that is Fae related, but I do feel like there's a lot of other places that we can see and experience, and that sometimes they cross over. But I don't know. I feel like we don't always have the ability to do that at will. I think some people can, but not many people. And I wouldn't be able to scientifically explain it, but I think about that a lot though. Like, is it that I am moving my consciousness to a different plane, or is it that they've moved theirs to mine? I'm not really sure.
You know, all of those questions, I have all of those questions. We think a lot alike, actually. I'm really enjoying talking with you. Um, I like the winding road of your storytelling style and where it's kind of left us. I'm so glad I asked for a little bit more about objects coming and going, because losing an entire jewelry bag, makeup bag, and then over a long period of time having individual items come back from that bag is very, very profound. Like, so no spoilers, but I like to tell this story whenever someone's coming forward with object stuff. Like, for me, I don't know that I'd included disappearing and reappearing objects into the Fae spreadsheet of stuff.
Oh, it has to be in there. I feel like that's a staple.
For sure. At this point, I mean, most of season 2 is me talking to people about just that. I've totally become converted. But originally, I don't know that I even thought that that would be... Like, I started off thinking, I'm just going to talk to people that saw other flying illuminated things. I had no idea that so many different types of Fae, and then so many different types of associated phenomena that constitute Fae behavior would end up becoming part of this show. But the disappearing and reappearing objects one is a big time one. And so, actually, before we kind of veer into some of the questions, because I can always get back to questions about stuff, you kind of mentioned something really interesting that I'd like to explore a bit more. Tell me about one of these times where you felt like an object shifted your timelines.
Okay. Well, I almost feel like it would be like I would describe it in the reverse of that. So it would be like I would notice something different about reality or a space that I was in, and that would inform me that perhaps I was in a different timeline or a different plane. I feel like the strongest one that comes to mind, because I've had many, it almost reminds me of well, I was going to say like the Mandela effect, but in a bigger way. So one of the things that happened that I don't know that I'll ever be able to explain is that I had gone into work one day, and I remember being amused because when I had first gotten this job, I showed up to the location for my first day of work and realized that the building was right next to a house that I had looked at when I was shopping for a home to buy. So it was like a house that I went in and toured, and I decided against buying it because it was like on a busy road and I wanted something more remote. But this house, it was very memorable to me. It looked like it had a face, and I I just think of houses that way sometimes. Like sometimes you'll find a house and the makeup of the windows and the door almost looks like there's like eyes and a nose and a mouth. I don't know if you've ever noticed that about some buildings. Um, but this house stood out to me for that reason. Like I remember what it looked like. I remember going inside when it was for sale and deciding that it wasn't the house for me. And so I remember thinking it was funny when I wound up several years later getting a job at the building next door. And it was just like, yeah, now I work next to that house that I had been through. So, anyways, none of that would be relevant except for the fact that I showed up to work one day and I had this moment where I was looking at the garbage can in the main area of my work, and I just like was looking at the garbage can and was like, I feel like I remember that garbage can being round, but it's square today. Like it looks weird. And so I ended up asking somebody that I worked with, like, are the garbage cans in the main room, are they square or are they round? And they like affirmed that they thought they were round too, but now they were square. And so we were standing there looking at it and both just like, huh, that's weird. I remember them being this other shape. So I go and I sit down at my desk and I look out the window And the house that to me looked like it had a face that I had toured before wasn't there anymore. It was entirely different. It was like a two-story duplex thing that was entirely a different building. And like there was no construction that had gone on to make it look like that. Like it was just boom, a totally different building right next door.
So strange.
Yeah, that's probably the most standoutish moment because I had the two things happen that day, the trash can thing and then the building thing, and it was all on the same day. So I'll have things like that happen where I remember something very differently than how it is in front of me. That happened once to me when I was in the sink fixtures, like the faucet and the handles, everything was different one day. Like so much so that I asked my husband if he had like changed it while I was gone, like replaced it. To which he said, "No, that's the faucet we've always had. Like, what do you mean?" But yeah, I have experiences like that sometimes, and to me, that's the only way that my brain really explains that. It's just like, am I in a different timeline now? Like, what? Why is that? Because I don't know how else to explain it.
You know, as I listen to you, I don't detect any embellishment in your voice. I just hear straightforward, almost like a lack of sufficient confusion, but I can tell it's just because you've wrestled with these questions too many times and you've already kind of settled that you don't know.
Yeah.
That's deeply intriguing. In those moments, like, what were you thinking and feeling, like, when you feel that this faucet is different? Like, what kind of comes over you?
Well, to be honest with you, it feels kind of exciting. I think I've just always been somebody who enjoys a good mystery. So, and I think you're right that like in the beginning when all of these interesting things were happening, I I would try to figure out why is this happening? What is this? How could this be? What could this mean? And I enjoy that part of the process too. I enjoy researching. I enjoy learning about theories people have about the way the world works, like the way that time space works, or the way that the spirit realm works. But I don't feel like I have very clear answers. And so it's something that I just feel like I've come to have this sort of playful, radical acceptance of. Like, I don't know why that happens to me, but I'll try to figure it out for a little bit, a day or so, and then I just let it go because I don't know what else to do about it.
Taken, individually, you might be able to pass one or two of those things off as something to do with misremembering. But it's when you start to contextually frame everything that you've told me over the past hour here into the larger catalog and into many of the manifestations and experiences of this phenomena that I've been privileged to learn about from listening to people firsthand. Yours honestly fits a mold. It's a totally unique set of touch points, but somehow it feels very familiar to me. I kind of can feel like why you reached out, and I appreciate it a lot because we're in good company with one another.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Can I let's do some speculating and talking about theory for a second. I'm curious what your perspectives are on this, because you've got a very understated wicked smartness about you that I like. So I kind of want to know what you think. Okay, so the idea, like I put forward, of them using objects to communicate, just to kind of finish that thought process up, and just to even tie it back a second to how I was mentioning, you first talked about an earbud going missing. I will tell you that the last two episodes I published are about an earbud going missing.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and in the time between talking to you and talking to those people, during the episode I was talking to Zach, my earbud just mysteriously went from 80% to 0% battery in my ear. It has since been absolutely fine. I'm using it again here now. But, even like right down to timing, they can use objects. And it's not just like a center placement, it's a humorous timing of return or an expression using an object that's humorous. And again, without words, it's like Mr. Bean, you know what's going on without any dialogue.
Yeah, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking too, like the symbolism of an earbud. That's, it's a way for you to receive, like it's a way for you to receive information. Yeah, like, do you hear me?
Are you listening? Exactly. And do you get it? A part of it is always punctuated. If it was a punchline that a comic was writing, the punchline is always, do you get it? Like, haha, do you get it? It's always the same joke, which is, I'm here every single time. And so, okay, like when you talk about these disappearing houses or changing, stable things, it's actually not the first time I've heard it. And when I think about like the malleable, by the way, I love how you dodged my question about where do you think the rings and stuff go when they're not with you. It was you didn't dodge it, you answered it great, but I don't know either, but that's kind of what I'm hovering around here is my next question. It's like, so assuming that the rings go somewhere and assuming that like your lived reality of a shifting perception of physical things like a house being the way it is all true, then what that says to me anyway is that reality is not as real as we think it is.
That feels like the most solid conclusion that I have come to after all of the strange things that I've experienced. It's just that my understanding of reality is ever changing. I feel like we don't know enough about it. And that there are probably properties of reality that still need to be researched or explored or understood, and that there probably is a better way to exist inside of it. But right now, it just feels like we're all running strange experiments on how to how to correspond with reality. But yes, it does feel very fluid, my concept of reality now, after a lot of the things that I've experienced. And it's something that I think could be very destabilizing to think too much about. And so I feel fortunate that something in my brain has always sort of reeled me back in. Like, I don't feel like I've gotten to a point where I am obsessive about understanding it and manipulating it. But I do feel like we have some sort of sway over which one we're in or where we are.
Yeah. You have done a very good job of reconciling all of this. I talk to so many people, and I offer this occasionally when I feel it's true, and I'll say it here for you for sure. Like, you're a good example of how to have this stuff happen and keep your head about you. I really detect strong grounding from you. You seem completely stable about it, even though the stuff is super, super weird. That's a remarkable achievement. You're not just brave, you're strong and quite skilled. It's mental gymnastics. I'm not playing you a platitude. It's tough to have this stuff happen, acknowledge it as real, look for answers, and still carry on with like paying your taxes and doing your day-to-day stuff,
Oh yes, it's very hard to exist in this version of reality when you have sort of an inkling that there are perhaps many other versions as well. It makes some things that are happening here feel really pointless or like cumbersome.
Yeah, in a world where reality is not as real as you think, which is a destabilizing thought to hold in your mind, very well articulated, Cora, I gotta say, you're very articulate. It is a dangerous and slippery slope, one in which you can find yourself unable to recover from. I've told the cautionary tale of my friend DK too many times on the show. Other guests on the show, as I've mentioned, have, had a similar fate, which is not, I want to be really clear, not that these are mentally unwell people who just went a bad way. These are emotionally competent, stable, rational people that have experienced impossible things for which they cannot find satisfactory answers, and for which other people have no way of truly believing until it happens to them. So I always say that the fairies give you a barbed wire wrapped gift. It's a gift, but it's a tangled mess to open up. And you're going to get cut up as you unpack it. So circling back to what I said a moment ago, you are a great walking, living example of how to walk in that skin. And I sincerely appreciate that component of what you've brought forward here today. If nothing else, your experiences are incredible as well. So it's all good. I'm very, very grateful to talk with you. Okay, well, that's great speculation and storytelling combo. Let me help you with your storytelling here, because I want to make sure that myself and the audience gets as much of a linear picture as possible. So the way that I understand it is that at some juncture you started this mystery school, and then many of these events, started to unfold. What kind of brings you forward towards today? Is there some other stuff that you're wanting to talk about? I sense there might be.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much that I could say. It's hard to know what direction to go in, but of course, returning to the dolls, I when I was at this point in life where I was having all of the missing objects and things like that going on, and at the mystery school and doing the homework, I had started teaching myself how to read tarot cards, and I had gotten a deck as a gift from somebody. I believe it was for Christmas. And when I tell you that when I looked at this deck, I just felt like every character on every card was so alive. And like it felt like they had a realm they were in. It felt like they were just alive and wanted to tell stories. I wound up making friends with somebody who had, within a few weeks of me, purchased the same deck and was like trying to teach themselves how to read tarot as well. And so we found that a funny coincidence, and we started basically studying together once a week. We would get together and talk about the meaning of the cards. And we were both so transfixed with the artwork. And she was a very magical person, very whimsical person, and a writer. And we decided to start sort of channeling information from each card, from each character in these paintings that were on these cards. And so we would get together and like talk about the decks, and we would write these really funny fairy tales about these tarot cards. And it just felt like, I guess I didn't realize this in the moment, but now that I'm like several years beyond it, I can look back and see that the Fae were like infiltrating my life in very different ways, like in different categories. And this was another one. Like I was bringing through all these fairy tales. It didn't even feel like I was writing them. It felt like they were being told to me and I was like scribing them. And as I started to work more with this friend of mine, we decided that we wanted to do intuitive work together. Like we wanted to give readings to people with our deck and channel things for people. And so we started signing up for different events and like spirit fairs, and we would just get basically like a fortune telling booth. We would like rent a space at a spiritual event, and we would both bring our decks. And when we would do that, we would talk sometimes about how we felt like there were there was something else that maybe we wanted to do. Like we had kind of wished that we could use almost like the characters from the art illustrations rather than the cards. And her and I both, at other points in our life, had been really fascinated with dolls, and like dolls being almost like a container or a vessel for energy. And we both realized that we had both independently of each other had experiences where we felt like some dolls had things to say. And so we were talking one night and we were just like, how cool would it be if, like, instead of using tarot cards, we had like a collection of dolls that would give information or advice to people. And it just kind of was like a joke. Like we were talking about how fun that would be. And I would say maybe a couple weeks later, I was at a thrift store and I found this huge wad of dolls. And they were all, I've researched them before. I think they were like world dolls. They're like vintage, they're small, but they all have these like different outfits that correlate to places in the world, I think. So they're like different nationalities and they've got their little blinky eyes and very elaborate outfits. But there were just so many of them. And I ended up like scooping them up, and there wound up being the same amount of dolls that there are the major arcana. Um, so I ended up buying these dolls feeling like these are the dolls. These are the ones that want to do this work. And I brought them to my friend, and we ended up, just like we had with the tarot card deck, we ended up spending time listening to these dolls and like writing, basically channeling information. They felt very alive and very Fae-like. And some of them, they had like very distinct energies and personalities. And my friend and I, we would both take notebooks and the dolls, and we would go places, and we would sit for hours and like just be swapping dolls, passing dolls, and we weren't talking to each other at all. We'd just like write down whatever we were feeling from them. And once we had a chance to each converse with each of them, we like compared notes, and it was just astounding some of the things that we were getting that were the same. Like it really felt like they had their own personalities and that they were signing up for this job to do, that they like wanted to give information to people who were looking for readings.
You know, I'm listening to you with just abject fascination, which I fucking even surprise myself sometimes what makes me fascinated these days. You know, I probably like, you know, I've mentioned Danielle on the show almost more than anybody. Maybe Danielle and Ruby I shout out the most. But, you know, that Danielle episode that you're referring to, right? She tells the story of how, you know, when she channeled certain spirits into the dolls, they kind of live in that doll. It's remarkably similar to what you're saying. And then I always like one of my favorite things about doing this show is something that seems like, and again, this is no disrespect to anybody, but something that seems like stupid at first. Like I'm going to talk to a woman who channels fairies into dolls, or in your case, I'm going to talk to a woman who can channel information out of an entity living in a doll. At first pass, that is not normal sounding shit, right? It's very eyeball rolling kind of stuff. But when I was talking to Danielle, she's going there and I'm listening to her, and I'm, for some reason, like from the moment she first emailed me, I just found myself captivated by Danielle. And as she's talking, I mean, those two unbelievable things happened. Those were the first times I ever felt in the show that I had unlocked what I was after. And what happened, as you know, because you've listened to the episode, is while I'm talking, a pair of glasses like lifts off the table, floats, and comes and drops like right next to my head. And then, as though to make sure that I completely believe it, the ball in my ball mouse just pops out of my ball and drops on the opposite side of my head a few moments later in the conversation. And there's another episode with Danielle, Cora, episode 33, because what happened is that Danielle tripped me out so much. I was doing like a giveaway to grow the audience for the show in season 1, and I bought a doll from Danielle to give away. And she's like, "Hey, Jim, I channeled the pixie you saw. I didn't mean to, but I realized after I was finished, that's what happened." And so I was going to talk to her about that. And when I was trying to talk to her about channeling Petunia the Pixie, I mean, literally all hell broke loose in what I would describe as a battle for attention and supremacy between my well-intentioned, quite humble fairy Petunia and this son of a bitch Grimble Grumble that had been, ruling the show. And I mean, like, that unfolded with, let's see, my fire alarms talking to me, the power in my building going out, a visitation from an owl right to my window, a visitation from Grimble Grumble himself right to my door carrying his staff. All of that shit, which is still one of the most unbelievable nights of my life, all of that, I lay at the foot of a woman who channels fairies into dolls because it's real. And so when I listen to you, it's like, and the last woman I spoke to also talking about a lifelong connection with her mother, channeling fairies into dolls. She told, like, I don't want to spoil shit for you, but I feel like it's worth mentioning here to you now, since we're just talking and that's the format of the show. So yeah, she's like, "Oh yeah, my mom used to make dolls and she called them hobgoblins, and she believed that she was channeling fairies into these dolls. And one day I didn't feel very like safe in the house. I just felt like all these hobgoblins were like watching me. And I said out loud, 'Oh no, what's going to happen?' And when she said that, all of the pots and pans in the kitchen flew off their hooks and crashed to the floor, like 10 of them."
Whoa.
So there's another example, of stuff being moved by entities channeled into dolls. And I think it's remarkable that, like, you have that thought, which you kind of put out there, and then this troop of dolls in numbering the same, as the hierarchical arcana come, and then you're having this experience. Can you remember some of the similarities that both of you intuned from the dolls? Do you remember any standout examples of what you both picked up on?
Well, I remember that, like, it wasn't like we wrote the exact same things, but it was like if you were talking about a friend that you had both encountered, and like you could describe, "Oh yeah, he's really introverted," or "He talks in riddles," or "This person's really grumpy." Like, when we were comparing our notes about their personalities and the things that they said, like, I remember one of them was like very like sing-songy, and was like, there was only one of them that was rhyming the whole time, and that matched for both of us. Like, we both got the rhyming only with that one doll. And then there was one that was like all about love messages and just saying lots of like weird Valentine's Day like tropes, even though this doll wasn't like dressed that way. So there were just like basically they had personalities, and the personalities that we were writing notes about and the messages, like the topics of what they wanted to talk about, were really similar.
That's so cool.
And so after we like got to know them and realized there was the perfect number for each of them to have a job with the major arcana, we like had this little ceremony where we like laid them all out, and then we like said, okay, well, who wants to be themselves but also represent the hermit? Who wants to be themselves but also represent the tower? And kind of assigned them all jobs so that, like, when we started using them with the public, we could either talk to the people about the arcana that they chose, or we could give them a very specific channeled message from the doll. But it was so fun to go on and do that with people. It was way more fun than using tarot cards, to have this big doll house and just open it up with all of the dolls sitting in different places and just have somebody like ask a question and pick a doll to talk to.
How many times in your life are you going to say, wouldn't it be cool if we had a bunch of dolls to do this with, and then go and find a complete collection of dolls?
Right, one time. It wasn't like I, went to thrift stores over and over again. It was like they were all just there, just together in a bunch already.
So if a house can just change and disappear, then a bunch of dolls can certainly just be where they need to be. There is an interesting thread of connection through all of your storytelling here tonight, Cora. It's really interesting. You remind me a lot of many of the guests I have on the show. You're just that certain kind of person that the fairies are attracted to. Can I tell you something else I forgot? I left it out too. Like that kind of like way that I sort of jokingly justified and validated you talking about dolls and channeling by talking about those examples from Danielle. Again, that stuff is super real and still scares me. But going back to like the jewelry returning, right? You can still somehow have ambiguity about missing and returning objects until you kind of weave through this catalog and you come across episodes like the one with Jem from the UK. Her husband lost his wedding ring for 3.5 years from the bedside table. He just didn't know where it went. And she never, they looked for it, but 3.5 years later, totally unrelated, she was kind of getting into crystals, and she started to take photographs of some of her crystals on this tree stump in her backyard garden. And fuck, here I go telling the Grimble Grumble story again. Son of a bitch. It's funny how this happens, but anyway, so
No, I can already see where this is going because it correlates with something I know, but go ahead.
okay, well, so, I mean, to spare you and the whole audience, she can't figure out why there's pumpkin seeds showing up on this tree stump she's trying to photograph crystals on. So for a week, she's trying to figure it out. They keep showing up. She buys a Ring camera. She one day, after like months of fucking staying up all night trying to figure out the mystery, sees a little gnome on camera. And the next morning, she's so excited. She's telling her husband, look at this video. It's a gnome. It's fucking, that's what's doing it. And in this like moment in her brain, she's just like, hey, can I have my wedding ring back? Just thinks it, okay? And her husband go to walk the dog. They open the door to the house, and right there on the center floorboard is the wedding ring that's been missing for 3.5 years on the patio, right as they open the door.
Wow.
It's that story for me that started to validate the missing and returning objects as being directly linked to fairies, because she saw it and then telepathically, sent out a signal and then had the ring return, which is a complete, point A to point B to point C linear story with a beginning, middle, and end that completes the understanding of what was happening all along 3.5 years ago when the ring initially went missing. So, like the fact that you can now add to that with you think you lost this jewelry bag and then it comes back piece by piece is identical in so many ways to Jem. So anyway, that's what I had to say. What were you about to respond to there? I could see something was coming up for you.
Oh, the part that was like shiny to me when you were talking about her photographing the stones or the crystals. I feel like there's something there in terms of the stones and crystals, but I've never been one of those like rock people or crystal people. I'm not very educated about how that works. But I do know that, other people I know really do a lot of work around crystals and stones. And the another being that I really wanted to talk to you about was a time altering fae that I'm in connection with. That's very quite loud, but I had an experience where I felt like this being was messing with my life in a way that was unpleasant to me. And it was recommended by somebody that I knew that I go pick up a certain kind of stone at a gem shop. And so I did. And it was uncanny how once I was in possession of this stone, everything that I had attributed to this other being and its influence on time just stopped, and my life felt very like normal again. And I wasn't having these strange like skips or time loops going on anymore. And I was very thankful for it. But when I made a decision a few years later to move from Oregon to the island of St. Croix, I had to pretty much get rid of everything that I owned except for a few suitcases of things that I was keeping. And so I wound up feeling like I wasn't so sure if this stone was helping me anymore and if I really needed to hang on to it. Like it just felt like a silly thing to keep. And so I ended up giving it away along with a bunch of other things that I owned. But I gave it away and then really quickly after started having the strange time skips again. And so I remember laughing about that and feeling like that was somehow connected to the Fae because it seemed to have been doing something for me and I just didn't realize it after a while.
Can I ask about some of these time slips? You're like you leave me like the most like great breadcrumbs for me to go like, okay, and now can I ask you about that? So what do you mean this entity that is affecting time? I mean, give me some more.
Yeah, see, I almost like hesitate to bring it up because I'm like, this is a very long story. But yeah, so if you have to break it up and put this in a different episode, I would totally understand. But yeah, there's a being that I have come to understand and know that I have other people that have experienced it as well. So that's always really nice when you've experienced something and someone else does with you. Um, but I'll just go back and explain again. When I was a part of this mystery school, we would do these kind of trance or shamanic journeys together, and we would also plan rituals together where we all had jobs to do. And the rituals were really based around the pagan wheel of the year. So we would celebrate a pagan holiday and we would kind of invoke or call forth certain beings that were relevant to that holiday. And we would have an intention for the ritual, and it would just be, a nice moment for people to sort of absorb the energy of spring or winter solstice or just, so that was like a thing that we did regularly. We would have a pagan holiday coming up, and so part of the class was that we would drop into a meditative state and sort of like gather information and invite beings to come forward that wanted to be present for these different holidays that we were having rituals for. And I remember it was a Samhain ritual that we were planning, which is the very end of the year. I don't know how much you or your listeners know about pagan holidays, but Samhain is like really close to Halloween. It's the time of the year where the veil between the dead and the living is very thin. And in terms of earthly matters, you would say like it's the composting season. Like it's the time of the year where you're kind of winding down and letting things come to an end of a cycle so that you can start again next year. So like right before you go into the like dead of winter hibernation, there's this period of time around Halloween. And as I'm sure you can imagine, that kind of energy is a very different energy than like springtime. um, so when we would drop in and kind of invite beings to be at whatever holidays, sometimes it would be surprising what would show up for people, and other times it made a lot of sense. But this planning that we were doing for the Samhain ritual, we had opened up the part where we were asking any beings that wanted to bring their energy or assist with the intention to come forth. This very strange, like trickstery being came forward. And when I say come forward, what I mean is that, like, picture a group of witches or pagans sitting around in a meditative state. There's a teacher or a priestess kind of giving verbal guidance or prompts. And then a lot of us are like writing things down in journals. And then we come out of that meditation and we all kind of share what we experienced. So you've got people who are smelling things. You've got people who are seeing things. You've got people who are just getting words in their head or feelings or colors. And we kind of like take all that information and use it to create a ritual. And we look for the things when we're ritual planning that are synchronistic. So like, if somebody's seeing an elephant but nobody else is, maybe that doesn't make it into the ritual. But if most of the people in the room were experiencing something really similar, then we know that being or that thing wants to be a part of this ritual that we're putting on. So that's, just to explain what we were doing, that's the environment I was in when this being came forward to a group of us. And there were many of us that like felt it arrive or saw it or heard it. And for me, the way that I experienced this being was that it was a very loud voice in my head. And I could feel it and sort of like picture it in my mind's eye, but not like with my eyes open. It wasn't like I was seeing anything in front of me in the world, but like I could hear this voice. It was very rich and real to me, and I could feel its presence. And several of the other people there experienced it too. And so this being became a part of our ritual, and it told us that it was the guardian of time. So we just kind of referred to it as the time guardian. And so it wanted to assist us all with sort of like turning the wheel of the year to the next year and sort of calling in whatever reality we wanted to be in. And this being, when I tell you, like, we connected with it multiple times over several months while we were planning this ritual for a huge group of people. But this being did not ever leave. Like, it still talks to me. It still visits me. I've had periods of life where I have like told it to leave me alone. But it's very persistent. And so not only is this being something that other people in my little cohort have experienced, but even when I talk about the being, I've had friends who have called me and told me, like, now I'm hearing this thing and it wants this. So all of that, just to give you sort of a background information, I understand this being to be like an interdimensional, time traveling, time altering. Like, I feel like he's like a representative of the Fae that's just like this trickster that it's like he's in charge of possibility, all possibility. And it feels like, even though he presented himself as a being that has something to do with time, it feels like it's a big joke to him that he doesn't really believe time exists at all. Once this being became known to me and I worked with it in the capacity that I just explained, I did start having a lot of really strange time jumps and loops. And you had asked me to explain those. So I suppose one that I would use as a good example would be there was a time that I was at work and I worked at a place where it had to be staffed with a number of people for safety reasons. So if I wanted to leave work, I had to wait for my coworker to come and relieve me, or I couldn't leave um, because that's what the laws were about. I was working at a mental health care facility, and so sometimes at the end of my shift, I would be looking out the window, waiting to see if my coworker had arrived yet or was like parking. And I had this experience where I looked out the window and I watched my coworker park her car and turn it off and get out of the car. And so I turned back to my computer and was like typing my final clinical notes and was getting, ready for shift change and to report some things. And I thought that I would be leaving. But my coworker didn't ever make it inside. Like I was waiting and waiting, and probably like 10 minutes had passed, 10 or 15 minutes. And so I was kind of wondering like what she was doing because I watched her get out of her car, and it shouldn't have taken her that long to walk across the street and into the building. And so I looked out the window to see if maybe I could see her. And as I looked out the window, it was an exact loop of what I had experienced 15 minutes before. I watched her car pull up and park into the same place. And I watched her turn her car off and get out of the car. And then that time she did walk in the building, like in a normal amount of time. And she sat down and we said hi to each other. And I just couldn't help myself. I was like, I just watched that happen twice. That is so weird. And so I asked her, like, hey, did you park there and then leave? Like, did you go get a coffee or something and come back? And she was like, no, I just parked there one time and came in. Why? And I didn't tell her. I was just like, oh, never mind. But I would have things like that happen where it felt like time was like skipping.
So fascinating to hear you talk about this entity's indicating that it's kind of like a master of time, but also at the same time that perception that it's kind of a joke because time doesn't really mean anything to it. I am of the perspective that fairies have a different perspective on time. In all of the examples of stuff going and coming back, I think that happens all at once for them. They simultaneously take it and put it back at the same time. They simultaneously watch you look for it and enjoy the thrill of, you acknowledging them. All of it is kind of in one motion, even though for us it unfolds in a linear fashion, which appears to take hours or days or, periods of time in between. I don't think it's exactly the same for them.
Yeah, it would be so cool to understand how they experience it or don't.
Well, here, again, I'm not a fairy expert, but I just think about this stuff all the time. And so I'll share what my brain does because that's all I can really offer. But because here's where I always get stuck. Gem, for example, or just stick with your examples, right? When you're upset about these rings and they're coming back, that's okay, maybe the fairy is once a week remembering to give you a ring back, for example, right? But when I go back to the Gem story, because Gem's story contains so much information, that when she thinks, can I have my wedding ring back? And then it comes back, there's two huge questions there. One, how is that message being received? Number one, are they telepathically reading her thoughts? Sure seems that way. That's where I've come to believe that fairies can know your heart and your mind. So careful what you're holding in your heart and your mind, because they're going to know. But then the second question is the fairy just waiting around for 3.5 years for her to have that thought and drop the ring off? Probably not. But the initial taking of the ring stops being what I think is a random event the moment it's returned. Because once it's returned, you realize that the initial disappearance was the first act of the symphony. And the return is the denouement after the climax. And so when I listen to you talk about this entity indicating its nature of time, when I listen to you talk about your sort of slipping perception of real world object placement, like garbage cans and houses, when I listen to you talk about this interactivity with the Fae that produces object disappearance and return, what I hear, and this is my 2 cents, is that you most likely have fairy blood and are both performing a suite of the same functions that they do, because you said right at the very beginning that all feels very kin to you, and that they feel somehow. I totally think they are us and we are them. I think there was a time at which it is highly likely that human experience and Fae experience were deeply intertwined. I think their ability to manifest physical stuff does not fall short of, and stop at rings and things. I think they can show up like full-size people. I think there's bloodline running through the populace, and I kind of think that object communication is a way of waking up people's skills and abilities, like activating a sleeper agent. You literally fit the bill for that. Like, you're like a fairy assassin being activated, getting the Jason Bourne treatment and slowly putting back together what you know. Bad analogy because that's like a movie about espionage, but it's, you get my point, right? Is you just feel to me, for what it's worth, like a fairy through and through. All your communication style, your high frequency intelligence, all this stuff happening to you. It's no surprise to me that you are having this kind of stuff happen around you because you're one of them.
That is a that is a compliment of the highest regard. I don't think that I have ever been like struck so much by a compliment like that. I feel something hearing that.
Hopefully. I mean, you tripped me right the fuck out in a great way. So, I mean, you're
Whoa,
like
whoa! My cat is freaking out right now. My cat just completely woke up out of a dead sleep, and she's like twitching and being very strange.
I got something going on over here on my end right now too. Woo. Huh. You have a visitor.
I wonder if the Time Guardian is going to start bothering me again.
Something shifted there. That was a very interesting moment in this recording. See, I gotta tell you, Cora, I don't know what happened to me. Somewhere along the way, I just started to say, like, I'm just gonna tell people when I think they're very... I mean, imagine like how hard that is for me to do. Like, I can't even take myself seriously sometimes when I muster up what I'm about to open my mouth and say. But I will say again, I don't do shit that I don't feel I need to do on this show. I'm not. This is not fun and games. If stuff comes out of my mouth, it's either because I was thinking it and I had to say it, or I believe it at the moment. I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to be delusional. This could all just be fun. You and I confusing each other and everyone else. For episode 100.
That sounds like something a fairy would do.
Sure. Or we all collectively are contributing to an understanding that is just like getting to be too real. And I don't know. For me, like I've lost the map on like sorry, lost the map is the right word, but I'm offering it at the wrong juncture in the point I'm trying to make. So, like I said, I saw that thing in 2019, which I described to you 2 hours ago. Since then, I've now ended up more like here, where I'm like, Cora, I believe you have fairy DNA and are being activated.
Yeah, that's quite a journey that you're on.
Yeah. Now, when I say I've lost the map, I mean, I lost the map from what I originally thought I was going to do when I picked up a microphone and decided to like start a podcast. I had a different idea about what that job or effort or hobby was going to be than what it's ended up being. And this kind of conversation is ending in this way that I'm getting so addicted to and familiar with in this show. I feel kind of lit up and high, and there is a weird shift. Like there's something around now. As of that moment, your cat jumped up and twitched. I feel like,
I feel it too. Yeah,
yeah,
it's very like you just had a glass of champagne. Like it's subtle, but it's there.
yes. And I mean, all of this, like I try to showcase this show to like a healthy group of skeptics because I keep trying to get other skeptics to come on the show and talk with me for episodes. And no one will do that with me anymore on this show. And I don't know what that's about. Maybe they just think it's too weird and it's a waste of their time. Probably it's that. Or they listen to enough of this stuff and they're like intrigued enough that they don't know that they're going to be able to poke holes in it necessarily. Because the collection of episodes that feel like this are getting to be a large number. And I don't think they're going to stop, actually. I hope they don't stop. But I mean, you've done like an incredible job of adding to this catalog of understanding. You've been a fantastic interview. I have like all those good feels. I feel like goosebump roller coaster up and down like 20 times listening to you talk. And you've been talking about, maybe the exception of this like time entity stuff all of that could just be passed off as imagination, like you're saying. But when we got to that kind of last juncture and you introduced that entity, it got really real there. So what stone did you use to keep that thing at bay? That's an important thing you should mention to everybody here, I think.
Right. And what's very strange is that I am doubting my memory about what stone it was. I could probably figure out what it was. I want to say a labradorite, but I'm not sure. It was a dark one that had like kind of speckles, sparkly looking speckles.
Huh. You said labradorite, but I'm just curious. I'll throw it out there and I might be wrong. Was it moldavite?
That sounds familiar too. Let me look at a picture and see what that looks like.
Yeah, take your time and I'll edit, around the space it takes you to do that. I need a little breather anyway. I'm feeling like energetically lit up there. That's nice.
Oh, it was definitely a labradorite. Yeah, the stone was a labradorite. And another interesting detail about this was like when I was giving away all my things, I would take a tote to my friend's house and she would take the things that she wanted and then she would either like go donate stuff or pass it along to other people that she thought would want the things that I had brought to her house. And so when that stone was in the tote, I guess it was something that she didn't want for herself. But after I started experiencing the time skips again, I actually called her and I asked her if she still had it because I wanted to take it back. And she told me that she had given it to her friend Ryan. and that she would ask him if he was using it or if he still was enjoying it. And then I was like, oh no, don't, like, I'll just go buy another one. Like, I don't want you to, like, take it back from him if you've already given it away. But she did call him and ask him if he had it. And he told her that he didn't know what she was talking about and that he didn't take it from her. And he just had no idea what she was talking about.
Like another time slip in a way.
Yeah, it just disappeared. She has this very vivid memory of giving it to him. He doesn't remember taking it at all. It's not at her house anymore. But I mean, it was, since it was a certain kind of stone, I wasn't terribly worried about it. I just figured I could go buy another one.
Well, for any audience members out there picking up a hitchhiker after listening to this depiction of this time dilating entity, go and get yourself some labradorite and hopefully things calm down. Dude, as I say that, I know the joke you're making there. Me and my bros, we used to say like, oh yeah, I'm like dating like a crystal Karen, like one of those girls who's got a lot of crystals. Now I like have a totally different perspective on that type of person and that way of understanding than I, ever thought possible. Such an interesting, fascinating, wide-ranging, and kind of meandering conversation with you here tonight. I like the way that this one has unfolded. I feel good about this episode. I'll tell you what, so unless, at this juncture, you had any other, because all of your stories have been super interesting. If there's anything you'd like to add about, this time dilation stuff, another example that you might want to give, another story that you feel is relevant, let's do that now. If you've got anything to say, if not, no worries. We can kind of move into like winding down. But yeah, if you had anything else that you'd like to add, please let me know now.
Yeah, the only thing that really comes to mind, another experience that was sort of profound and felt related to that, was a different time where my husband and we had plans after we had put our baby down for the night to watch a movie together. And I came out of the nursery that I put our daughter to sleep in, and I couldn't like find him. He wasn't in the house, and he wasn't in the bathroom, he wasn't in the living room, he wasn't in the bedroom. I texted him. I didn't hear his phone. He didn't answer. And so I just kept like looking around, and it felt like a really long time to me. Like this, definitely over an hour, could have been like 2 hours, where I could not find him. I was starting to feel very worried. And I was like going from room to room, looking outside in the yard, just like, what am I missing here? Like, where is my husband? We're supposed to be watching a movie. Like, I was getting annoyed. And that went on for quite some time until I came back into my bedroom, and he was just sitting there, and he was like, where have you been? Like, I've been waiting for you to start the movie. And so we both had this experience where we thought the other person had literally just disappeared off the face of the earth for over an hour. We both claim to have been looking for the other one in the same spaces in our house, could not see each other, hear each other. It's just absurd that we both were saying that that's what was happening during that time.
How did the two of you reconcile it? What was the conversation like? What was your satisfactory answer?
We were both very firm on our experience of, I was in this room. No, I was in this room. I looked everywhere here. Well, I looked over there. I've been looking for you for over an hour. Well, I've been looking for you over an hour. And we couldn't make sense of it. And so we, both of our phones had messages to the other one, like, hey, where are you at? I can't find you. But it, like, we had to just chalk it up to, we were both walking around in and out of our house over and over again and just never happening to be in the same room. Like it I know that sounds so like that was the only explanation that we could come up with that made any sense, but I don't feel like that's what happened because of how small of a space it was. I don't think that could have been going on for that long.
That doesn't make any sense. How many bedrooms?
Um, I'm trying to think because we did add on to this house, but I think it was before we did that. There was one bathroom, a bedroom, and our daughter's bedroom. So like obviously nobody was in that room because no one wants to wake the baby up, right?
Right.
So yeah, like a two-bedroom house with a yard.
Impossible that you're going to be looking around for an hour in a two-bed. I'm in a two-bedroom house right now. I mean, you.
No, and he is very prone to wandering in the yard. So at the time, it seemed plausible to me that he was doing something outside that I just didn't see. Like I just kept thinking, oh, he's gonna wander in any minute here. But then I like was frustrated by the end of it because I was just like, where the fuck have you been? And he felt the same about me.
It's interesting to, like, as I listen to you, there is a degree of an escalating trajectory of events and understandings. Like, because fucking with objects is one thing, which is part of the hypothesis I've always put forward, which is they do that. But I've also always said they mess with time. And like, Clyde, this other gentleman who I talked to, he had a really interesting experience, kind of similar, where him and his girlfriend had a misperception of where the other were, In his case, his girlfriend was like having PMS pain, and so she's like, can you get me this bottle of ibuprofen? And he's like, yeah, let me go downstairs and get you a drink, and I'll get you that. And then he went downstairs to get her a drink, and he's fiddling around down there for a minute or whatever, and he comes back upstairs, and he's like, gives her the drink, and she's like, oh, thanks, babe. He's like, yeah, let me just get you the pills. And she's just like, looks at him, and he's like, what's wrong? And she shows him in her hand is a bottle of ibuprofen that he just handed her. And he's like, no, I didn't hand you that. I was downstairs getting you a drink. And he's like,
Ooh, that's giving me chills. That one's getting me.
Well, it goes on. He says the bottle is over here in the cupboard, and he walks over to like the bedroom armoire and opens the cupboard, and there's the bottle of pills. And now the two of them are fucking stunned because there's two identical bottles of ibuprofen.
I thought you were gonna say it like moved out of her hand into the.
No, they had two identical bottles, and both unopened, both new. And neither of them could explain it. And what it was, she was like, so just to complete the part there, to make sure you got the whole picture, she's like, oh, I'm not feeling good. Can I have those pills? He's like, yeah, I'll go get you the drink. I'll come right back upstairs. And she was just looking at her phone, and all she was perceptive, like remembering, is that his hand with the bottle kind of like reached into her view, and she sort of just grabbed it and didn't really look up from the phone, So something was like there handing her that bottle while he was downstairs.
Oh, that's kind of creepy.
Super creepy, yeah. Yeah, rest in peace, Clyde. He's one of my guests who is no longer with us. Great stories on his episodes, and some really similar time dilation speculation with him as well. Like, he remembers multiple times where he was talking with his girlfriend. It was one time of day outside, and he's like, okay, babe, like, I'm going to work on this tattoo design. And he would like put on a video and then be working, and then the video would stop, and he would like look up, and it would be like daylight, and 12 hours had been missing, And so it's very, very interesting to contemplate a reality in which we are cohabiting with a entity class that can manipulate the physicality of reality, stuff disappearing and reappearing, or just spontaneously appearing, for example, can modulate time. So, what you think is a fixed, linear, inescapable entropy of time can be fucking messed with. And that can be done consciously by a person, aka a fae. And then you wonder why they have any interest in us at all. And then you go back and listen to this episode and think about the many things you've described. I go back to my original takeaway, which is you're fae. You're just like them. I'm sure of it. The more I say it out loud and the more I spend time with you, it's many of us listening to the show are the same way. And I think that's why some people feel drawn to come talk with me, because they know that I'm going to say that to them. Whether they know it or not, the fairies do. Right? The fairies know if you put someone in front of me, like you, Cora, I'm probably going to tell them what I think. And so...
You've diagnosed me a fairy today.
Yeah, like Sherlock Holmes style, like, totally no degree, no credentials. Jim White, PI. Yeah, I'm out on the hunt looking for fairies and daylighting them. I'm low-key joking, but I'm also kind of not, because what's become increasingly clear to me is that what I saw was just the tip of the iceberg back in 2019. There's an entire story here of forgotten cohabitation and forgotten capability. And I don't know if I'm right or not, but I do think that contemporary experiences with fairies are on the rise. And I think that there's a need for people to not just speculate about this stuff, but to know it about themselves for what's coming. We need people equipped with a lot of confidence in who they are and what they can do. And if enough people listening band together in goodwill and focus these capabilities, which so many people clearly have, what is the upper limit for positive change that could be enacted? I just don't know. But not to get too like Braveheart about it all, leading everybody over the hill to the fight. But I mean, come on, like there's got to be a purpose to it. I just don't think it's random stuff happening here anymore. And talking to you today just empowers me to speak that. So thank you, Cora, for everything you've brought to the table. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having me, and it's so refreshing to hear your take on it, and it definitely makes me really excited to keep researching. I feel like I'm just at the beginning of that, because most of what I've done is so like firsthand, like just go straight to the source, try to interact with it on your own. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, well, it'd be nice to hear about what other people have learned or have documented. Something that you said made me realize that I might have a piece of information for you. I am going to go back through my mystery school notebooks that I have, because I feel like there was a class where they talked about the great separation of people and the Fae. So I'm going to see if I can find any notes that I took about that, or if I wrote down anything about, like, I don't know if that's a piece of folklore or if it was just something that one of my teachers channeled. But I'm going to see if I can find that and share it with you.
We've all met before, humans and Fae. This is not our first merry-go-round ride. We've met before. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, Cora, you've reminded me of an important question I've neglected to ask, and I'll ask it now. In 2 minutes or less, what is mystery school? What is that?
I would say mystery school is an anarchistic exploration of spirituality. The design of it, at least the one that I went to, the teachers there said that their goal was to give people the tools that they would need to discover their own spiritual leaning or calling or gifts. So it wasn't like joining a church. Like, nobody said you have to be pagan if you join this mystery school. but that's what the teachers there happened to be. So they sort of made a framework around paganism, but it was very open ended. Like, we're just going to teach you some really basic spiritual skills and let you try a bunch of different things, kind of like in the honor of self exploration.
Okay, that's really cool. I mean, prior to talking to you, I can honestly say I had never even heard the word mystery school before. So thank you for telling me that. You learn something new every day. And based on our conversation tonight, it feels to me like that had some real value to you doing that school. So might be something that other listeners have their curiosity piqued by and go on to explore based on your, you're taking the time to explain what it is. Okay, so Cora, I noticed we've kind of hit that 2-hour mark. I have some loose rules for the show. One of them is I try to keep it around the 2-hour mark out of respect for your time and the audience's time. I truly could talk with you for hours, so it's not about that. But what I'll do here is, with all that in mind, I will ask you my favorite going away question that I ask every guest on the show, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before I get there, I'll just, be remiss if I don't pause a second again and say, what a great conversation. I mean, you're just a very bright, intelligent, you've got a great energy to you. I told you a few times, I think you're a fairy, but again, I don't know what they are at all. But I've had a really great time, talking with you in that special way that I've come to feel with certain guests. And so I do want to make sure, as you listen to the rest of the catalog and you come across a couple of other episodes where I'll say this to a person, that you know where it all fits in. It's a genuine sentiment from my heart. That said, again, I don't have any idea what fairies are, so me telling you I think you're a fairy is kind of a funny thing to say, because I can't really yet define them, which brings me to my question for you, of course, which is, Cora, what do you think that fairies are?
Oh my goodness, that is the question, isn't it? um, hmm. Obviously, they are beings that I feel are so deeply connected to the earth. Like, there is something there. Like, it almost makes me feel like they're like the heartbeat of the earth. I don't know how else to describe it. It feels like they're a group of beings that are very, I feel like there's a large variety of them and that they serve different purposes, but I really do think that there's some really strong tether to the land spirits and the land. And I feel like there's I don't know, it just feels like there's a love story between fairies and the earth, and that they are meant to be here just like we are. But I don't know much else other than that. Like, that's just a feeling that I have about them.
I love that answer about a love story between the fairies and the earth. And I echo that feeling. And I think partially, just to kind of build on what you've said there, is like that heartbreak they feel towards us is just the total confusion as to why we don't have the same love affair still. I just don't think they can believe we've lost it, that we've lost our love affair with the earth and with nature and with all things in creation. Creation is the biggest fucking miracle of it all. It's just like, walk out your door and look at it. It's all there. It's all so many textures, colors, sights, and sounds. If the Fae are good for anything, it's got to be that they wake that up in us. I truly hope that what you're saying there is absolutely true. It's a great answer. Wow, what a cool conversation. Okay, well, I think we've covered all of the ground that we usually cover in a Fascinating Fae episode. So what I'll do here is I'll spend about a minute signing off. But Cora, I always give my guests the last word. So if you would like to just meditate for a moment on what your last words will be to everybody as you go to leave here tonight, I'll do my housekeeping, and then we'll get right there. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, way to put me on the spot. Oh man, what? I don't know if you heard that.
Oh, yeah, I heard your cat.
Yeah, she came. She thought she was gonna have the last word.
Well, that's yet to be seen because, I'll do my podcaster housekeeping, and then she may, in fact, get edited in as the last word. But what I'll do is this. So for everybody listening, tonight you've been listening to Fascinating Fae, and I'm your host, Jim. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, if you're an artist with a connection to the Fae through your work, if you feel like stuff is happening around you that feels similar to what's happening around Cora, please reach out to me. I would be totally thrilled to receive a message from you. You can send me an email, encounters@fascinatingfae.com, and you can also find the show on Reddit or other social media by looking for it at Fascinating Fae, and you can send me a message there. With all that said, what I'll say next is that Cora, on behalf of all of our human and non-human listeners that are tuning into Fascinating Fae tonight, wherever you all may be, a super big thanks to you, Cora, for coming on the show. It's been really, really wonderful. I sincerely appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. What a delightful way to spend the evening.
Do you want to drop a last word for everybody as we go to leave here tonight?
I think my wish in closing out the episode would just be that something about this episode brings you tenfold more of other people to interview that you enjoy just as well.
After all the songs that I have sung, I stand bare to my bones and look up at the sun. And grandfather, shine your rays on me. Take my prayers and guide me in the mystery. For so long I've been beating on this drum. Once again I write a requiem of love, to love life and surrender to the whole. I like to look in your eyes 'cause they're the windows to your soul. Looking for light out of the dark, it starts with a single spark. Feed it some fuel and watch as it grows. Surrender to the ebb and flow. And in this life, while you're alive, fire all your arrows high. Shoot for the stars, let go where they land, and know that there's a master plan. After all the bridges that we've burned, we march on but still know we haven't learned. Oh mother, how I feel your grief. Know that there's a fight for your relief. Gift us the strength to hold on strong. Even though the night gets darkest before the dawn, we shine lights to guide us to the other side. This cocoon will bloom into a butterfly. Looking for light out of the dark, it starts with a single spark. feed it some fuel, and watch as it grows. Surrender to the great unknown, and in this life, while you're alive, fire all your arrows high. Shoot for the stars, let go where they land, and know that there's a master plan.
Testing. Okay, it looks like this is recording. I just wanted to give you a little update. Since you and I talked last, things have been bonkers over here. I feel like there's been such an increase in activity and just strange, unexplainable things happening around me. So I'm going to explain to you what those are. Firstly, electronics are just being very fritzy around me. A lot of the remote controls in my house are not being responsive, even though they have new batteries. I just feel like I'm being messed with all the time. Things are turning off when I don't turn them off. Things are turning on when I don't turn them on. This is going on in my house. It's going on my phone. It's going on in my car. My car is having strange electrical malfunctions that will correct themselves the second that I say out loud, "Hey, if this is you, I need you to stop playing with me. I need my car to work." So an example of that was the key keeps getting locked into the ignition, and then when I ask her to stop, it will come right back out. Or the air flow in my car, when I'm turning it on air conditioning, it won't work, but then the heater works, but then the AC will work again once I explicitly say out loud, "Hey, if this is you messing with my air, please stop. I need it to be cold in here." And since I've asked for those things to stop, I haven't had any issues with them again. So that's kind of interesting. I take my car in regularly whenever there's an issue, and I've had lots of things repaired. Shouldn't be happening like that. Another super interesting thing that's happening is my Spotify app that I use to listen to podcasts and music with has been sending podcast episodes to people when I'm asleep that would specifically relate to topics that they would be interested in listening to. And then I'll get a notification in the morning that says, "Hey, thanks for the podcast," and I didn't send it. So either I'm sleepwalking, or I don't know. It's weirding me out because I know that I did not send those podcasts to people. That's happened twice this week. And then perhaps the most enchanting and interesting thing is that I usually have these little metal jewels on my watch. It's like a watch charm, and I really love bugs. So I've got these two moths, and they have little sigils on them. My favorite one is this teal moth that has the North Star on it. It's a little charm that I wear every day. And I looked down and realized that my moth was missing. And I didn't know if it just fell off or if the fairies took it. So I said, "Hey, if you guys took my moth charm, I would like it back, please. Thank you." And then I went outside and was walking to leave the condo that I live in. And I walked along the path and was kind of looking on the ground, just wondering if maybe my charm had fallen off when I went out to get groceries before. And so I walked along the path and didn't find anything. And once I stopped looking, I got distracted by something, and then I ended up looking down at my feet, and right on the ground in front of me was this golden ring, like a piece of jewelry, and it has these stones of different colors that I believe correspond to the chakra colors. And on the inside of the ring, there's engraved words that say reality, soul, mind, time, space, and power. It was the most incredible thing to just find at your feet. I've researched the ring since and found out that it's called an infinity ring, and it's like connected to some movie. But still, it felt very pointed and playful, and it's the first time that I've ever asked for a piece of my jewelry back and then received a different piece of jewelry. So it really delighted me and made me laugh and smile and feel very connected to the Fae. I still have not received my moth pin back, but a few days after that, again, I was in a parking lot and looked on the ground, and there was this really beautiful rose quartz bracelet at my feet. So I picked that up and thanked him for that too, and yeah, I guess I'm just getting random jewelry from the ether now until further notice. So I will give you another update if I get any more strange jewelry or if I lose any more jewelry, but apparently we have restarted the jewelry game here as a result of doing the podcast together. So I hope you have a good day. I will keep in touch if anything else strange happens. Bye for now. All my love, Cora.
I'm holding some space to learn how to cry, release and renew with each tear from my eye, healing the wounds, this ancestral pain, the agreements are due. It's just why we came to wake from the dream and rise to the times. Give thanks every day for the gift of our lives. These friends that are here, intentions aligned. This earth that is home of divine design. Be it May, yeah, the old world's burning. It's going up in flames. So we look up to the standing people, and they teach us to be brave. Eyes open wide, we're holding our grounded presence. In the yin and in the yang, roll with the tides, sing and you sound your spirit. It's the reason that we came. We're taking this world so fractured and torn, we'll create something new for the kids to be born. And pray that we learn from the darkness and fear, but focus on truth and the abundance that's here. And open up wide when the medicine calls. We're sharing our gifts for the service of all. We'll honor this earth and unite the tribes, healing the souls of all humankind. Be it May, yeah, the old world's burning. It's going up in flames. So we look up to the standing people, and they teach us to be brave. Eyes open wide, we're holding our grounded presence. In the yin and in the yang, roll with the tides, sing and you sound your spirit. It's the reason that we came. Be it May, yeah, the old world's burning. It's going up in flames. So we look up to the standing people, and they teach us to be brave. Eyes open wide, we're holding our grounded presence. In the yin and in the yang, roll with the tides, sing and you sound your spirit. It's the reason that we came.
So the next day, I see this green moth been hanging around in our house for a while, and it's just a moth. I'm like, oh, that's just a moth. But for some reason, I'm like busy. Like, I'm getting the girls ready for school. I'm getting screamed at. People are like taking their shoes off. I'm like, we've got to go. We're busy. We're gonna be late. I stop and I just noticed this green moth. I'm like, that's such a pretty moth. I don't know. And then in my brain, I heard like an external source go moth, and I was like, that's weird. I was like, is that just like, it was like one of those intuition things, like moth. I was like, okay, look, that's just a moth. Holly, don't just say, because I'm weirded out because these things just happened. And I'm like, whew, shivers. Okay, whatever. I'll keep an eye out for moths today. I take a few more steps into my house, and I've got in my hallway, I've got a hallway table, and right in the center of the hallway table, I've got a big wooden dish, which is up. It's like a standing dish. So underneath the dish, you can place things. I've got 3 little shungite crystals because I love crystals. Right in the center of my hallway table, I've got 3 shungite crystals right in the center underneath my big dish where I've got like other pretty ornaments and stuff. And in the center of my 3 shungite crystals is a black moth perfectly placed in between the 3 black crystals. It couldn't be any more center placement. And I stopped and I pointed at it and I said out loud, I said, center placement. That's so funny. 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 Hey, Jim. Funny. Okay. Hi. Funny. I don't know where to start, so I'll do my best. Okay, to start with, that ring is trippy. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about the ring. It's nothing to do with me, but there's just something. There's something about that ring. It's a great start to my voice memo. Okay, I'll leave the ring for now. But thank you for sharing that whole ring thing. When I put my finger on it, I'll let you know. No.
Curious about her now. Like, why? Why? Hi, honey. What is it? What do you... I don't understand your language. It's tough.